Hi, everyone. Hi. First, let me say thank you for coming. It is not lost on me that this is at the same time as lunch. And when people choose between food and me, let's just say it's not always me who gets picked. So very, very grateful that you guys came. As the loud, ominous voice just said a few minutes ago, I'm Rob Boyce. I think I have what I would consider the most exciting and maybe most exhausting job in Accenture, which is to help our large global clients and governments help build confidence in defending themselves against what seems like ever-increasing number of threats. I'm not sure how many of you were here last year, but last year we had made it a huge announcement that Google and Accenture were making a very prominent partnership in the security space. And we talked a little bit about the Gen AI innovations that we were going to be launching. If you didn't attend last year, no worries, because I just caught you up completely on what you missed. If you did attend last year, you'll find this even a bit more interesting. So last year we talked really about what it is we were planning on doing. And this year we're talking more about what we did, the impact that it had, and a sneak peek at some of the new innovations that we're having. And so, because no one really wants to hear me talk for 45 minutes, I have two other guests who are going to be joining me on stage shortly. One who will absolutely talk about the impacts that the platform and innovations have had on his organization. And the second who will talk a little bit more about some of the things that are coming up new in the platform. So before we get to there, though, I want to just talk a little bit about our philosophy and our approach that we took to really get to where we are today. And I have been doing the security gig now for over 25 years. And I came to this realization last week that I have people in the teammates in my group who are actually haven't been alive longer than I've been doing security, which is a little depressing in a moment of realization. But if I'm being honest with you, not a lot has changed in the way we approach the security operations capabilities. When I first started, I was installing firewalls and aggregating logs from IDSs and others into what then was very immature SIMs. But we've been doing the same thing. We've been collecting logs, we've been aggregating logs, we've been looking for patterns, looking for anomalies, and we haven't really made a huge impact. And so I truly think that Gen AI is going to help us get to that impactful state in the security operations space. And so as we were thinking about this, a few key guidelines, principles really that we were following. The first one around workforce efficiency. And so I've said this last year, I'm going to say it again this year, security people cannot solve the security problem. And so I think Gen AI is going to allow us to diversify the capabilities and the people and the different backgrounds to come into security and really rethink how we approach security operations. And right now, if you're a SOC analyst, and I have been one, and I don't know how many people in this room have at some point in their life, but you're usually very technical, you need to be specialized in a number of tools, and you don't really have time to really put the thought into how to investigate an issue. You're spending more time really being technical experts. And I think Gen AI is going to allow us to make the shift where we can start doing a lot more investigation and a lot less technical hands-on. So super excited about that, and that's something that we tried to work into our platform. As far as enhanced focus, I think everyone in this room will agree that there's too much data in the world for us to be able to organize in a meaningful way. And in the security space, again, for me, security is all about data in the future. And I think, especially in this space, super important. And so how do we make sure that we can help SOC analysts distinguish the signal from the noise and really focus on what matters most? And that's something else we really wanted to do within our platform. Third, simplicity. This can't be hard. This has to be easy. If we have overcomplicated the security space for far too long, stitching together multiple vendors within a SOC to try and get the best results, or buying a pointed product to solve one pointed problem in the security space, and that's not going to get us where we need to get to. And so this has to be simple for SOC analysts and also for us as in the security community to be able to be more effective. User-first mindset. So we have at Accenture, we have over 1,000 managed service clients, 5,000 to 7,000 SOC analysts. And so we used all of that experience and thought about this from a SOC analyst point of view. So we're not creating a product, we're creating capabilities. And those capabilities are done so from the point of view of the people running those capabilities, which is super, super important. And the final thing is collaboration. And so the worst thing you can do when you're creating a capability is hope that what you're creating is meaningful to the people using it without involving them. And so we were very deliberate on making sure that we had a partner design program where we invited a select number of organizations to really contribute to what we were building and how making it the most meaningful it would be for their organization. And so with that, today I have with me Mike Frazee. He is the CISO of Lendlease, and he is going to come on stage with me in just a moment, and we're going to talk a little bit about his experience as an early adopter and a design partner for Accenture in this space. So please help me welcome Mike to the stage. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for joining me.
Yep, thank you.
Now we can sit, so it'll be more comfortable for me instead of pacing around. So just to put a little context for everyone, Accenture and Lendlease have been working together to really transform and help, I guess I would say, accelerate a lot of your cloud-first initiatives with just moving workloads to the cloud, and this includes security. And so you've been going through a security journey, a transformation really in the Google GCP space. Maybe just as a first question, how was that? What prompted that transformation, and why did you go down this path?
Yeah, absolutely. So as an organization moving into the cloud, we knew that we couldn't depend on the old school of security monitoring and at the speed that it was at. And we knew we were moving into GCP at the time, and we made a strategic decision to go with Chronicle as our platform. And so when we talked to Accenture and Google about it, we were able to work together to see how we could leverage the Chronicle platform within GCP to really help expand our security SOC services.
Yeah, that's awesome. And these guys just heard me say a few minutes ago that we had you as a design partner. And that's a little bit a unique situation for us. I know it's being an early adopter to something sometimes can be scary, and so we wanted to try and make it as easy as possible for you. But maybe if you don't mind, just how was that experience as a design partner? How did that go?
Yeah, no, the experience was really good. There's different layers, as you could imagine, in designing this technology. And so at the executive level, we had multiple meetings and strategies around it. But even at the coal face of it, at the SOC service, there's a lot of integration and teams working together daily, weekly, monthly on this product. So it's been really good.
That's awesome. So I know that, again, last year we were talking about some of what we thought was going to be super compelling, introducing Gen AI into the stack. I know we've just now started introducing it into your environment. So I'd be curious maybe, and with the limited exposure you've had so far, like what are some of the outcomes or the value that you've seen driven through the Gen AI component of the platform? And then maybe, a bit more broadly, how do you see Gen AI really playing an important role in security operations?
Yeah, look, I think we all as security practitioners, we're looking for both speed, to be able to detect, right, and respond to events as they come in, and visibility, right? And, with Gen AI and with the ability to contextualize events as they happen and provide analysts the ability to really understand quicker what's going on in your environment and be able to then respond to it, that's key to winning the battle at the end of the day. Gen AI is something that even the bad guys are using against us. So if we're not leaning in, if we're not using it to help speed our detection and our response and provide context to the events that are happening in our environments, then we're behind the ball.
Yeah. I think that's actually really interesting because we see a lot of organizations are thinking more from from a threat actor point of view, the advantages that a threat actor can gain from using things like Gen AI. And honestly, the reality is we're not seeing a lot of that outside of really high efficacy, high volume social media attacks, or social engineering attacks. We're not really seeing them using it in a super meaningful way today. And I think there's a huge opportunity for the defenders to be able to be using it in a much more meaningful way. So outside of SOC, are you guys thinking also about how to apply Gen AI to other security capabilities?
Absolutely. I mean, wherever we can leverage it to understand or have better visibility of our environment, making sure that we're capturing all the logs that we should be capturing, making sure that we could tell the story around our security posture management to both our clients and to the board. That's where we see Gen AI being a value add to us. And really, Gen AI can become the tool to help everyone speak the same language, right? Because it's going to provide that context that everyone can speak to. And look, it doesn't come, at the cost of people. As Rob and I spoke earlier this morning, people are at the center of Gen AI, at the contextual. So just because you get everything pulled together in a nice, pretty sort of reviewed document for you, you have to have people that can do critical thinking on that context and be able to then properly respond. So it's, it's absolutely critical that you have the right resources, people still in place to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a huge misnomer for me too, that robots are going to steal our jobs. I mean, definitely no chance of that happening soon. Yeah. I think from an Accenture point of view, there's a few spaces that, in addition to what you're going to see today shortly with the demo, a few other ways that we think Gen AI is going to be super, super compelling. And I think just any time where you can aggregate information and be able to search that information in a meaningful way. And two areas really stand out to me. One around threat intelligence, of course. There's so much data, so much intel, and then how do you sort through that to make it actionable? And so I think we're going to see a huge opportunity to not just focus on threats anymore, the threat information, but really thinking about how we move from threat data to all data, and how we start really doing more business contextualization of threats, and being able to provide more to business decision makers on how they should be making better business decisions. I think the Russia-Ukraine, Israeli conflict, you name it, that had a global impact on various things like supply chain and other things. Like if we can start figuring out how to get that business context data in, we can start thinking more about the causation of events in advance and start to almost predict things, and then predict it from a business point of view. I think one of the bad reps that a security operations center has, it's a money pit. You put a lot of money into it, and the value you're getting is arguably small in some respects. Because you don't know the value when you're doing the job well. You only know the deficit when you miss one event, and there's something. But if you can start making that security operations center more valuable to the business stakeholders, it becomes a much easier conversation when you need to make new investments or upgrades, for example.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think to that, though, it goes back, I want to really harp a little bit on visibility and the ability to use it to understand your environment and your posture around that environment, and how you can explain, based on a threat that comes in, how that might apply to your environment, and whether you need to take action or not based on that.
Yeah. It's action. Everything's around action.
It is.
Exactly.
It is. Yep.
I mean, getting data and not doing anything with it is sometimes worse than actually having something to taking action. I think the other area, if I can just maybe one more to pick your brain on, I think is around threat exposure management. And threat exposure management to me is not just taking scanning from vulnerabilities and calling it now threat exposure management, but it's having a good understanding of your asset landscape, the full exposures related to all of that, whether it's application, whether it's network layer, whether it's, you name it, identity is a really great example. And if you are able to start using Gen AI to prioritize remediation efforts across all of your exposures, not only will it be better for you to figure out how to increase response times and be able to focus on things that matter, but you're also going to have a much better position of reducing the risk for the organization that matters most, because you're able to start prioritizing. So I'm really excited about the potential for Gen AI in that space.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, and that's what's been great about the partnership, obviously, with Accenture and Google. I'd love to hear from you on, why you guys have joined up with Google on it, but for me, it's just the ability to consume large amounts of data and be able to rationalize it.
Yeah, well, I think I'm supposed to ask you questions, Mike.
But sorry.
No worries. I'll take it. So I think, it's a great question, and there's many players that someone like Accenture could partner with, but we chose Google on purpose, intentionally. And the way you heard me earlier say, security is a data problem. Like, this data is going to be the most important thing in security if it's not already. And what is a better company than Google to be able to manage data and figure out how to make use or meaning out or insights out of that data? So it was a really clear, compelling case for us to be able to just have the two organizations partner.
I thought it was just because I said that if you didn't do it, that I'd find someone else that could work in Chronicle. But hey, I'll take your story. That's all right. Yeah, that's good.
Maybe both. I don't know, but no, I think it's just. It's for us. It was a very, very, very simple choice. And then, of course, with the Mandiant acquisition, and the additional data that comes with that, and being able to partner with the Mandiant team is super powerful. And now we're using Mandiant Intel to power our MXDR platform, which is even more powerful than before. So I think it's been, I think it's been it's a perfect partnership from my point of view to really think about how do we move in a really compelling direction to start solving this security problem.
Yes, we need to get ahead of it.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So you guys have heard us talk about this for a little while now. Maybe we can bring out Jonathan and we can show you a little demo of some of the innovations that we've been putting through from a Gen AI point of view. So please join me in welcoming our Jonathan Kindberg to the stage.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm Jonathan Kindberg. I'm the Security AI Engineering Lead for Accenture. Today, I'm going to talk to you and demonstrate a capability. It's called our Security Generative AI Search capability. This capability supports multiple different offerings, as well as our actual clients. This capability actually brings in multiple different disparate data sets, like incident data, vulnerability data, document data, as well as asset management data. It's built on Google Cloud Services. It leverages Vertex AI and leverages Google's foundation models. Today, what I'm going to show you is that you're looking at one of our offerings called Managed Extended Detection and Response. And this is the client portal. So this is something that Mike would actually have to be able to log into. Now, we're going to demonstrate how you can quickly search over your incident data, vulnerability data, as well as documents, and most importantly, your threat intelligence data. There's multiple ways you could approach this. In natural language, we're going to search in the search bar. But I'm going to actually start with the first piece. Imagine that I'm a CISO, and I've been alerted on an advanced persistent threat, APT 28, and I'm really trying to understand if my organization is being targeted, what's the risk, and how do I protect against it. So when you come here, I could immediately search for APT 28, get more information about that threat actor, but I'm going to start with understanding what are my critical security cases or incidents over the past month. And what's happening here is we're extracting all the case information from Chronicle SOAR. We send it through our embeddings pipeline and store it into our retrieval augmented generation framework. Here allows us to semantically search over security incidents. As you can see, we have two suspicious incidents. One is around malware. Most importantly is the top one. There's an attempted login from a root user on a firewall. Now, at this level, I know what my security incidents are that are critical, but I'm not quite sure why they were tagged as critical by the SOC analyst. So here I can actually ask, why are these critical? But you may notice that this is already actually prompted for the individual. It's because we do suggested prompts. So we even try to reduce the speed instead of typing it out. We suggest these prompts based on the information. As it comes back, we start to tie in this global threat intelligence information to these critical cases. If you read what's up on the screen, you can see the suspicious login. We have tied that emerging threat that I heard about earlier, APT 28, has been identified with this critical incident of the suspicious login. Now I know that this is one of the main reasons why our SOC analysts actually tagged it as a critical incident.
Hey, Jonathan, sorry, can I interrupt for
Sure.
some surprise? Just wanted to, as we're going through this, I think it's really interesting to me because this, just even being able to get the focus, as I was saying earlier, it's separating the signal from the noise and getting true focus on what's important to be investigated with information that is supporting it from multiple ways, both threat intelligence and the business context within the organization, is super important. I mean, I would love to hear from maybe you, Michael, put you on the spot a little bit. Like, is something like this where you're able to start prioritizing? Because I'm sure your SOC teams are, I mean, before, probably like trying to figure out what is most important for us to do, and then how to report that to executives of why we're focusing our energy here and there. Like, I'd love to get some thoughts from you.
And yeah, I think you sort of hit on the mark, right? the ability to pull all this information into one place where an analyst isn't going to 4, 5, 6 tools to identify what's really going on. They're getting the context of what's going on, and there's some prioritization in it. So this is all about, once again, speed and response, right? And it's critical. Yeah, this is great.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely right. And as I mentioned before, we suggest prompts, and you can see on the screen, now we have a couple different options. We can actually ask more information about this advanced persistent threat 28, because we know that this is what made the case actual critical. But I'm actually going to dig into a little bit deeper. What you see around the CVEs is common vulnerabilities and exploits. I really want to understand if our systems are being targeted, and how would this threat actor actually gain entry into our environment for potential data breach. So I'm going to immediately search this, and as I mentioned before, in our knowledge base, we're pulling in many different disparate data sets, one of them being your common vulnerability information. It brings back exactly 3 vulnerabilities that this threat actor targets, and it gives us some critical information about this. I'm only going to focus on the top one, which is around the Cisco edge router. So there's a critical vulnerability in that edge router that attackers could actually use to exploit, to compromise my network, my data, et cetera. The next piece is, I really want to understand, this is great, we have some information, but do we have visibility into this? Do we actually know if we have this information to be able to detect this? And any organization has thousands of assets. We're able to pull in that information through CMDB or some other asset management system and search across that. Now we can see, do we actually have the Cisco edge router? If you take it even deeper, you could look at versions, different versions, and from here, as we do this, we see that, yes, according to this, we do have that information.
Yeah, and sorry, let me stop you just quickly again.
Sure.
Because I think, if there are a lot of security people in the room, not that long ago, we all struggled with something called, say, Log4j, or MoveIt, or you name it, whatever the latest thing was that somebody was targeting. And I don't know for all of you, but I saw a lot of organizations struggle with trying to be able to find, what are the assets that are really, truly impacted by this. And so being able to tie this context in and being able to search quickly to see if we have it, I think is something super, super meaningful from my point of view. I guess, Mike, again, as the operator, I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, spot on. I think, when you're able to contextualize all of the environments that might be impacted and then set a schedule and how you might respond to that event is just going to mean that you're going to close the gaps on the things that might be exposed.
So with that, we're going to actually pivot to, we know that we've identified an emerging threat. We've tied it to our threat intelligence information. We know the CVEs that they're targeting. We know that we do have this asset within our environment, but the visibility is really what we're looking for. Do we actually have these logs into the MXDR platform so we can better detect this threat? The immediate response that we see is that we do not actually have these logs onboarded onto the platform. So the next main step is, how do we actually get these logs into the platform? And this is, again, searching across tons of vendor documentation, our own curated documentation. And as I ask it, how do we actually ingest this information? It's searching across this and then being able to give me the step-by-step instructions.
So just real quick, I think an important note here, sorry to jump in on you, but this is where it goes not just to the SOC analyst, but out beyond into IT operations. And so now you're not just playing around with the SOC team, but you're also sharing knowledge out with your IT operations on how to respond and ensure that the log data is being pulled in, which I think that's another huge advantage here.
Exactly, and this would take time to actually get the data in, but you can quickly communicate this on how to get it fast into the environment. But we want to move to actual action items. So from this, on the vulnerability, we have to be able to patch this. We know that we have Cisco Edge Router. We know threat actors are targeting it, and we need to have another team mobilized to actually patch this. So this is a modular system we integrate into ServiceNow and other ticketing systems. As I create this ticket, it's reaching out to ServiceNow, providing it the information, summarizing what just happened, giving it to that network operations team, and then I receive the actual incident ticket information. So now we have a team that's ready to actually go and start to patch this. But it doesn't really stop there. We still need to conduct a threat hunt to see if they're actually in the environment targeting this. So I'm going to open another ticket, mobilize the threat hunting team, and they're going to actually go and search for this threat actor.
Yeah, I love this part because, as we were saying earlier, this all has to lead to action. And I think for a long time, we've been relying on SOC analysts to have eyes on glass, raise tickets, hope for the best that someone's following up on those tickets. But now we're able to orchestrate it from a single console, which I think is going to really increase the speed and coordination capability. And these are just a couple of examples, right? Clearly, there's other items that can be happening in terms of how we are orchestrating the different follow-ups, the different actions related to these different types of threats that we're seeing. But from my point of view, when I was a SOC analyst or working with SOC analysts today, this type of coordination and this type of information gathering could take days to be able to get done. And we're now orchestrating it in almost real time to make it a lot more effective.
And just another good point on that, it standardizes sort of the response as well, right? Mm-hmm. Which I think, as you know, SOC, every individual's different, right? And so they might respond differently. But by using Gen AI, you're building a bit of a playbook that can be followed, but with the critical thinking behind it.
That's right. Yeah, I think you were saying earlier, so I'm just going to steal this one from you, but it's analysts no longer have to be focused on gathering the data, they're focused on executing the action.
That's right.
And I think that is going to be the most powerful component of this, to me.
Exactly. To end this demonstration, we're just going to take everything that happened to summarize it so now that I could effectively communicate this across my organization. So one of the great things language models are good at is actually summarizing information. We've provided all the information to it that I just demonstrated, and now it can quickly summarize in a specific format of what I'd like to easily go and communicate this.
That's great. So why don't you come join us?
Cool.
And then I'm going to ask you some trick questions to see how you
Before you
respond.
do that, I mean, he's got to tell us what's next. I
Okay.
mean, this is some great stuff here, right? I mean,
Fair.
this is exciting, Jonathan, but what's next? What else are you guys working on in the lab back there?
This platform is being extended throughout security, and one of the key areas is around threat exposure management, as well as continuous compliance. And there's a whole host of other security domains that we're extending this capabilities to. We do have 3 production capabilities around report generation, malware analysis, and translation. If you come to booth 810, I'd be happy to demonstrate these to you.
That sounds great, yeah.
That's awesome. I would be, I guess some closing remarks, and I think we are going to open it up for questions, so start thinking about your questions now. I mean, again, from my point of view, Gen AI is this, double-edged sword, right? It's going to provide a lot of advantages, but could provide a lot of risks. And I think one of the key areas that I'm seeing is organizations are a bit reluctant to adopt Gen AI in some areas because they feel like either it's a new threat vector or just through unintentional consequences could be releasing information outside. But you are an early adopter. And so I'm curious from your point of view, lessons learned or advice you would give to people considering thinking about leveraging Gen AI and some of their security capabilities.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is you got to be willing to lean in, right? You got to be willing to say that, this is being used by others, both bad and good, and we need to take advantage of it. And then it's about picking the right partners and making sure that you do the right diligence to implement the technology to help you with that deployment. So,
yeah, makes perfect sense. And I'm sure, maybe I could preempt the question that I'm sure will come for Jonathan, which is, what security controls have we put in place on top of our platform to make sure that we're, operating in a responsible way around how we're using Gen AI?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's actually it's really split. There's your technical controls that you can implement around guardrails. It really depends on the use case you're doing. Some of the other examples that we have that are in production that you can see at the booth, there's no chat interaction. So that requires different technical guardrails, right? There's your actual secure enclave, that's one of the capabilities we offer around actually how do we secure this stuff. The other piece is around if it's a chat interaction, making sure that when people are inputting information that it's within the guidelines of the organization and they meet the language model requirements. So anything around certain biases, racism, or sexual remarks, that's all stuff that we capture and track and conduct post-analysis on. On the other side, we have more of kind of the business stuff. So I work very closely with legal, data privacy, compliance, risk, responsible AI, and we undergo a very lengthy process to get all these use cases vetted prior to actually just building and implementing them.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. I guess, and maybe just wrapping up, Jonathan, I know you've already been asked, what's next and how are we keeping us safe? But I mean, from your point of view, where do you see Gen AI going and our capabilities and throughout Accenture? Because you don't just do this, you are really leading the way across all of our different capabilities.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question because you have kind of two sides of the coin. You have developing for our clients, going in, deploying stuff and building certain capabilities for them, very bespoke, right, to them, customizing it. And then on the other side, throughout its security, it's really building these to enable our teams to deliver faster, more efficiently. So that's the other side of the coin. So with that, and multiple different security offerings from data protection to strategy and risk, all the way through cyber resilience, we're really looking to build and enhance our offerings.
That's great.
Almost feels like the tip of the iceberg.
It really is.
I just think, working with Jonathan and the team and I think as you look at the opportunities across all the different disciplines and then at the operational layer, but then at the executive layer, and as you're able to then leverage this technology to be able to talk to your boards, if you're a CISO and you do that, or to your customers, in a language that they understand and that's common, that's going to be big too for those that need that.
Yeah, I mean, I heard you say earlier, the contextualizing story to be able to present to boards and other leadership.
Got to be a storyteller,
right?
And what better way to get a story, right? So.
Yeah, because my experience is the security organizations have been so technical that they have trouble communicating with business stakeholders. And I think your philosophy is this may be something that actually makes it easier. Okay, so we have 10 minutes for questions. I wanted to make sure we had some. I'm already seeing one hand up here. Do we have microphone runners? Oh, a couple hands. Yep. Oh, there's 3 hands. Okay. Just this gentleman here in the front row with the glasses and wonderful jacket.
Although I'm not a style icon like you. But anyways, Rob, I just wanted to have Jonathan, can you explain all the other stuff you're doing? You showed one use case today, but there are a bunch of others. I'd be curious what you've all developed over the last year that you mentioned at the beginning of the talk.
Sure, absolutely. One of the examples that we talked about extending this platform to was around cloud continuous compliance, or what we call Accenture continuous compliance. It's where we ingest various amounts of technology standards from customers, as well as vendor documentation and compliance frameworks. Quickly, we can look as we pull in the configurations from the cloud environments, determine where they are not meeting compliance standards. Depends on the framework. We automatically generate the remediation through infrastructure as code, et cetera. So that is run on an automated way, and it really provides people much faster way to actually respond and for teams to go and adjust and actually implement. Another capability that we're building internally is around for leveraging our existing capabilities and taking, for example, our malware and adding a forensics capability with generative AI for our crisis incident response team. So that's being built. We have some other innovation stuff that we will reveal later. And then we have another one I think is very impactful around our identity and access management. This is really accelerating our teams to operate more efficiently and assist them with their delivery of their services with their clients.
That's great. I think there was a question here.
Thank you, Jonathan, for your demo. At McDonald's, we're also considering applying recommended prompts into some chatbots for various generative AI use cases. And one piece I'm curious about is, for those recommended prompts, are you using some kind of manual decision tree over top of that to align with process guidance? Are you grounding in process documentation? Or how are you making sure that those recommended prompts are actually guiding the different folks that are involved to the processes that you want to encourage? Because the reality is you're most likely going to click on those, and so having the right prompts is very important.
Yeah, that's excellent, right? Because at the end of the day, it could be a classification problem, or you could add some additional machine learning on top of it. But we're still in development right now, so what you're seeing is a coming soon feature. So that hasn't completely been fleshed out. Now, in some of our cases, for example, if it's very much SOC operations, I want to know this information, as the example I showed, right? You have a critical case, we tied a threat actor to it. Naturally, we can kind of infer maybe they would like more information about that threat actor, so we can suggest that. But really, one of the bigger pieces of it is that this is just going to be distributed over multiple clients. And that's really what we're going to look to see of what questions people are asking, and then from there help to guide some of those suggested prompts. We also get this information, though, we work very closely with all of our SOC teams on what they would ask, right, as an analyst. What are some of the questions they're looking for? So really gathering some of these, what we call golden prompts up front, a handful of them will help with that process.
I think what's really going to be exciting, just to add on to that, is we're seeing the common responses for various events and being able to obviously suggest and being able to rate those suggestions in a meaningful way, but also start to be able to create the automations behind it. And so this is where we know we'll be able to focus automations, because these are the common tasks and the common questions that are being asked. And so I think that's really going to help accelerate response time in addition to the prompting, also the automation component. I think will be super interesting. Yep.
And how are you thinking of addressing the generative AI risks in your platform? Because there are some new kind of risks coming because of enterprises wanting to use generative AI in their applications and their environment. Have you had conversations with your clients about it? What are those risks, and how do you see your roadmap evolving?
Yeah, it's a simple question with a very complex answer, of course. So there's many different ways to think about how to manage the risk of Gen AI, and not just within the platform we're talking about, but within a large enterprise, of course. And so there's, thinking about it from, how do we secure it from all the way from the infrastructure through the model layer? How do we do, the red teaming on top of the different AI components, which is something new that we really haven't done as a security community before. How do we make sure that we're securing the data in a meaningful way? How are we making sure that we're thinking like threat actors are thinking on how to compromise those systems to make sure we're building in additional controls? Because the reality is this space is moving so quickly. Whatever we think is perfect today is going to be completely different 30 days from now. And these risks and threats are going to continue to emerge. And so being able to just stay on top of understanding how the threat landscape's changing around Gen AI is going to be probably the most important thing we can do as a community. And I think Jonathan talked a little bit about how we're securing our platform, both from a technical side and from a business side around secure, responsible AI, and then of course the technology side. And happy obviously to continue the conversation after with you if you have more pointed questions, for sure.
And just to add to that, at the end of the day, this is a web application, and it's a cloud service we're leveraging. So we still undergo your traditional, web app pen testing. We have our adversary team try to hack us. So, we're leveraging a specific cloud service for this as well.
I think this question's for Mike and Rob, but it could have different perspectives on this. With Gen AI, do you see that this could start to close the talent gap that we see as, it's providing prompts, it's forcing people to think critically, and maybe they don't have to have all of the extreme background that a typical SOC analyst would have used to?
That's a great question. I tend to say that you still need to have the good understanding of how IT works and be able to critically think on these events. I don't think we're ever at a place where it's just a point and click and off you go because it's told you what the answer is. So I think it'll help enable more people to get involved and to learn the process of critical thinking, but I think it's still, it's not going to close the gap significantly. You still need people to help respond to these.
Yeah, I think it's not going to change immediately, for sure. I think over time, we'll see SOC analysts become more, more like true intel analysts who are acting on information instead of gathering information and being able to act faster. They're still going to need to be somewhat technical, for sure, but I don't see them having to be in so many tools anymore. I think it's going to be at a much higher level, a lot more troubleshooting, a lot more critical thinking, and really running through investigations like you were a real analyst doing that type of work as opposed to technical work. Yeah.
Hi. So in terms of the end-to-end threat management, is there a way for you to audit the recommendations that your AI is doing, and then auditing, well, on what level these recommendations have reduced your threat level, or whether the tickets that you're assigning to your teams are effective at reducing your threat level?
So the answer is yes. As we're building this, we definitely want to incorporate that into the platform on the back end, and we have access to this information, and we want to leverage it for that. We also want to understand how successful it is. So with everything we build, we define our success criteria, and that's definitely one of them, right? How does this actually mitigate the threats, and how successful was it?
And I think just from the design partner perspective, I mean, they're running in both, we're running as an organization in both environments, the new environment plus the older environment. So they're able to test the use cases and see some of the outcomes between the two. So that's been a beneficial outcome.
That's great. We may have time for one more, if there is one more. Well, we may have exhausted all the questions. Yeah? Okay. Oh, wait, there's one in the back. All right, that was close. I almost missed it.
A question for John. Was your example cooked? And a follow-up.
I'm sorry.
The APT28 example that you gave, was that cooked?
Cooked as in?
Was that a real-life thing where
a real adversary?
Well, a real set of alarms, alerts, and things that went through your SOC?
That is example data from our dev environment, yes. So this is in development. This isn't taken from a production environment, but everything's a real example.
But I just noticed it was a 5-year-old CVE that got fired off, and I don't know whether that says something about the environment that's being run, or also why that's being recommended after 5 years, but that's onto the AI.
I can definitely tell you firsthand of owning a group that does incident response, these are the vulnerabilities that threat actors are most successful using to be able to compromise environments. They're not using 0 days. They're not using the most sophisticated things. They're using things that people have legacy debt or tech debt around and using those as vulnerable systems. So it may seem like it may not be a real example, but I promise you it is a real example, although, as Jonathan said, within a development environment. Okay, I think we are exactly out of time in 1 second. So I just want to thank everyone so much for coming. Really appreciate the attendance. And if you have any more questions, I think we do have a booth that you can come by and have a chat later on. So thank you so much.